That's your key verse to guide your thinking today. Now, we'll start out with a little history. Um, King Solomon. King Solomon is our main character, and God is speaking with him. God is speaking with him. We know that Solomon was who? David's son. He was David's son. And David, this lesson takes place after or during the dedication of the temple. We know that David wanted to build a temple, right? But God would not allow David to build a temple. The reason was David was a man of war and he had shed much blood. And God did not allow him to build a temple. But he did let him do what? Draw up the plans. Now, what does that tell us today? We may plan for the next generation. We may not get everything done we want done because it may not be set assigned to our hand to do. So David had the vision, but God told him no. All right. But it was all right. David was all right with that. So he drew up the plans. And he collected, in some scriptures, they said he collected the furnishings. He collected the best wood, the best gold, the best silver, the best everything. He stockpiled it, is what we call it, for his son Solomon to build the temple. All right, now, God spoke to Solomon twice. The first time he spoke to Solomon, he asked him what he wanted. And he asked for what? Wisdom. Wisdom and understanding on how to take care of his people, God's people. Yes, yes, yes. Wisdom. We need wisdom today, don't we? Yeah. And understanding. Pray often for more wisdom to understand why and wherefore things are happening as they are. Now, this is the second time today. Today's lesson, that was at Gibeon. This is the second time today. God is visiting Solomon in his sleep. And he's giving him some directions. He's given him a promise and he's given him consequences if he does not keep it. All right, promises and consequences. Our first outline, the Lord promises deliverance, 12 through 16. We said that God appeared to Solomon in the night and told him that this will be my chosen place. Now, this chosen place was the temple that God had allowed Solomon to build. And Solomon prayed. They had a big celebration, y'all. They celebrated for 7 days, and then they celebrated 7 more days, and they ate, and they danced, and they sang, and they prayed. Solomon prayed. And God came, and he answered his prayer. In 7, he says what? He came by night. And God assured Solomon that I hear your prayer. How many of you have prayed and you know that God answered your prayer? Or you may be still waiting for something special. Answered your prayer. I have heard your prayer. And this temple will be the chosen place where God's Spirit will reside, and my people shall make sacrifices. It reestablished the priest's role, our oily, to making the sacrifices. So this is where we are in verse 12. At the house of the sacrifices. And you remember Jesus doing what to the temple? What he did? He lit it up, didn't he? Start beating the money changers and all out the temple. Now that's a lesson for us today. I was going to go back for 2 minutes. When we purchased this land was dedicated. You remember, Dee? We came out one Saturday afternoon, and the various ministry presidents or leaders said a prayer on what they pledged, and that this land would be dedicated to a house of God. And then once we got it built, we had more dedication, right? So we don't want anybody to be offended if some of the old heads say, no, you can't bring that up in here because this is dedicated. And everything we bought, we dedicated, didn't we? The refrigerator, the stove, that was new to me, and the pews, and now the books and everything we procure, we get is dedicated to the worship of God. All right, that's a kind of sad sidebar, but you need to understand that. 13 says, 13 is telling Solomon that I can shut up the heavens and you won't have any rain. Sranie, You will have no rain. I can command the locusts to eat up the crops, and I can bring pestilence. Now, he was establishing his authority with Solomon. You know I can do all these things, Solomon. You know I can shut up the heavens and you won't get any rain. And you know I can send the locusts and eat up all your crops. Yeah. And you know that I can do what? Bring pestilence. Now I had to look up pestilence because I didn't have it right. I thought the pestilence was like the flies and the gnats and that. COVID-19. COVID. A plague in 1921. There was a plague called the bubonic plague, and people were dying by the millions, and the scientists couldn't find nothing to cure it. In 2019, 2020, we have COVID. That's a pestilence. All the scientists do, they can't cure it yet, can they? No, ma'am. Because it's a disease that only who can cure? God. And your prayers, we may not have turned from our wicked ways. That's all I'm going to say on that. That's all I'm going to say on that. 14. Let's go through that one again. If my people who are called by my name, we said it with Israelites, armor themselves, bring yourself down off your high horses. That's what we used to say. Bring yourself down. Pray. You got to pray. You got to seek his face. All right, now. Seek his face has a double meaning here, sort of. Seek his face is keep asking, but seek his face is to seek his will. What is his will for me? What is his will for me to do? What does he have in line for me to do? So I got to seek his face and whatever after that, turn from our wicked ways. Yes, Lord. I'll usually bring one with me. I didn't. Forgive their sins. What now? Now, wicked ways. Wicked ways, and we need to examine our ways to make sure they are not wicked ways. To make sure we are not sinning. To make sure we are not sinning these two words. By omission and commission. Because sometimes, we think we're doing all right, right? And we've omitted some things that we should have taken care of, that we should not be sinning. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. I have some water. I'm fine. Okay. And then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now I read that 10 times. I got the answer this morning. Then will I hear from heaven. Okay, God is talking to Solomon, right? What is he telling Solomon? I will hear you from heaven. Yeah, I kept reading it and praying because it has I've never really understood it. I don't mind admitting it. He's talking to Solomon and he is saying, then will I hear from heaven. I will hear your prayers. I'm in heaven, but I will hear your prayers. Your prayers will come up to me and I will hear them from my position of God. I am God. I am in heaven. You pray here. I will hear your prayer. You got it? Read it a couple of times. It'll keep making sense. I will hear your prayer from heaven and forgive their sins. He promised, right? He'll forgive our sins. But he didn't say there wouldn't be no consequences. But we forgive our sins. And he will heal the land. So we need some 14, don't we? We need some verse 14 here on earth. All right, 15. Question, comment.
I hope I can bring it. Thinking in my head.
It's all right. I help you.
Okay. I read the scripture over and